just go ahead and introduce yourself. Then I'll introduce the speakers. Then in case the chair will not be in, then we can just get started. So my name is Evelyn Lili. I am a planner from Kenya. I am a member of the Kenya Institute of Planners, but I'm also a member of the CAP Young Planners Network. I sit in the steering group of the CAP Young Planners Network, and specifically I'm the co-chair for the Capacity Building and Mentoring Committee. And part of what we've been doing as the Capacity Building and the Mentoring Committee is ensuring that we are capacity building the young planners within the Commonwealth. So we've been having a series of sessions on different themes. And today we have this session on achieving participatory planning with GIS. We've had another session before on GIS as well. So we have a number of sessions. We have different thematic areas that we focus on. So yes, that's what we mainly do as that's the subcommittee under the steering group. Then we'll be joined shortly by Olafilin Taiwo, who is the convener of the CAP Young Planners Network. She's based in the UK, and she's also a member of the Commonwealth Association of Planners, as well as the Royal Town Planning Institute. Yeah, so I wish to welcome all of us once again into this session. And I think just to set up a bit of ground rules, please ensure that you are muted for this session, that we do not interrupt the speakers. All right, so I'll now go ahead and introduce the speakers we have today, and then we'll just go right into it. In case you have questions, kindly use the chat section. Kindly post your questions on the chat. The speakers will be able to address them once we are done. So our first speaker for today, our first speaker for today is Planner Mildred Ambani. Planner Mildred Ambani is a planner from Kenya. She's a member of the Kenya Institute of Planners. In addition to that, she's also the Honorary Secretary of the Kenya Institute of Planners. Planner Mildred Ambani is a lecturer at Kenyatta University, and she has a bachelor's degree in urban and regional planning. She has a Master of Arts degree in urban and regional planning, in GIS, and then she's also pursuing a PhD in urban and regional planning. And I think Mildred is one of my personal mentors, really. I learned so much from her, and especially in GIS, and we're really happy to have Mildred as one of our speakers today. Then just go to the next slide. Thank you very much. Or someone is saying there's no voice from my end. Can you hear me? Please confirm that I am audible, if you can hear me.
Yeah, you're quite audible.
All right, thank you very much. So then our next speaker will be Mr. Kumar Farid, who's joining us from Pakistan. He's a chartered town planner of the Royal Town Planning Institute in the UK and the vice chairman of the Town Planning for Pakistan Council for Architects and Town Planners. He actually brings in a blend of experience, both from private sector as well as the public sector. And he has quite a lot of experience, and you'll actually be able to see that from his presentation shortly. So Mr. Kumar Farid is joining us from Pakistan, and they'll be doing this presentation together with his colleague. So Mr. Kumar has participated in policy-making initiatives, including the LDA Building Laws Bylaws for 2019. He's also been part of the people who developed the housing scheme rules in Pakistan, as well as the KPK Town Planning Act, that's the Town Planning Act in Pakistan, and is currently formulating the National Urban Policy of Pakistan. So we actually have a wealth of experience today. Then the next speaker, who will also be co-speaking with Kumar, is Mohammed Adil. So Mohammed Adil is also a planner. He's a researcher. He's been a researcher at the UK, and he's also bringing in a wealth of experience from the private sector. And so today we actually really have very good speakers who will be joining us for this session and who will be taking us through the presentation today. And so today we just want to look at, just go back to the intro slide. So today we just want to look at how, as planners, we can actually be able to use GIS. That is Geographic Information Systems for participatory planning. And I'm really happy that we have very good speakers on board. So I think without further ado, I'm not sure if our chair is in, but as soon as she's in, I will let us know. I think I just want to hand it over to the first speaker, who's Mildred, my mentor. Feel free to say anything else you want to tell us about yourself and dive right into your presentation. Over to you, Mildred.
Thank you, Lily. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mildred Ambani, and Lily has already given the intro. Of course, my master's is in GIS, MSc in GIS, not in urban and regional planning, but it's still a good thing. I also have a postgraduate diploma from Erasmus University in urban management and development theories. And therefore, I'll not go into so much. I think it's just good for us to delve into my presentation so that we can deliver on our agenda for today. And later on, we can have a one-on-one question and answer session. So I will share my screen. And Evelyn, you will confirm if it is visible. So great. I think I'll proceed from here. Just again, my intro, but most importantly, the theme of this engagement is about the role of GIS for participatory planning, and that is what I will be dealing with. And I have an outline that I will be sharing with us. First, I want to talk about the policy and legal framework provisions for role of GIS for participatory planning, but from a Kenyan context. Then I'll also delve into why physical planning is a driver of GIS for participatory planning. But again, most importantly, I'm looking at it again from the Kenyan point of view, then the role of GIS in participatory planning, and then last but not least, I'll be having just giving us some of the challenges that we are facing in matters GIS for participatory planning. And therefore, from our Constitution 2010, I'm just citing some of the articles in the Constitution, and in Article 10(2)(a), we have got matters of values, the national values and principles of governance. And some of them are patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law, democracy, but most importantly, participation of the people. So our Constitution actually makes provision for matters participation of the people in all matters. And the state also in Article 69(1)(d), it states that the state shall encourage public participation in the management, protection, and conservation of the environment. And from a planning point of view, as we are planning for as we are doing our planning, we are actually looking at protecting and conserving the environment. So as we do the same, then public participation is very key. And one of the objects of our devolution, as I'm giving there, is to enhance the participation of the people as it exercises the powers of the state and in the making of decisions that affect these people. So remember, Kenya right now, with the promulgation of the Constitution 2010, we have devolved governments, and everything, most of the functions have been devolved Mungu Asel, Alfred, kindly mute your video if you don't mind. I hope he can hear me, Lele. Mungu Asel, thank you. Yeah, so Kenya, we are devolved and most functions are done at the county level. And therefore, the same is very key to us, that we have to enhance participation of the people in everything that we do at the counties, especially matters planning and all other functions. And when we look at our Bible as planners, we have provisions from the Kenyan point of view. And in section 48, It provides that as we are preparing plans, for example, the local physical land use development plans, we have to have what we call a geographical information system-based maps and descriptions as may be necessary to indicate the manner in which the land in the area has been used in accordance with the requirements of the second schedule. So GIS is very key. And this is one of the deliverables. And when you have been given that job, you cannot satisfactorily say you have delivered if you don't have a GIS information, a GIS-based system that or database that you deliver to the client that has given you that job. Then also there's a survey report. And still in that survey report, you are dealing with many things, including the environment, the sieve analysis of the gradient. You are also looking at infrastructure. And therefore, as you're doing the same, you get the GIS comes in key when you're doing all the mapping work that concerns the same. And in section 23, in preparation of development plans, the Director General, that is at the national level, and also we have got the CEC, on matters land at the county levels, also ensure effective participation by the public and relevant stakeholders. So there are various parts when we are doing planning that you have to involve the stakeholders, and the stakeholders cut across so many. You want to bring in even the people with disabilities, the youth, the women, the transport people. So everybody has to be brought on board, not just the technocrats alone. So this is very key. Then in second schedule part C, you have to provide a report on citizen participation, describing meaningful citizen participation. So you have to have a database or evidence that indeed this is how you did your public participation. Though sometimes we say, are we really able to measure that this is really efficient public participation? But together with the Gazette notice, together with the media, then you have to also bring on board those that are concerned, and then you give evidence of the same. Without that, it's not viable. I remember when we were doing when we were in the digitization task force, we gave our first report, and the Parliament had to reject it because we had not given evidence of their public participation. So the data was there, but not well documented, and therefore it had to cost us to redo the same work. So it is very important where Kenyan law is concerned. And when we look at the Vision 2030, this is our blueprint for matters global, Kenya becoming a globally competitive and prosperous country. And in this case, I'm focusing on the social pillar, where Kenya aims to be a regional center of research and development in new technologies. So I would put GIS as part of the new technologies that you cannot evade from. It is really a must that you have these new technologies, and therefore GIS has to be embedded in the curriculum for the universities, for the secondary schools, for the technical institutes, because it is very key. Remember, it is a tool that can be used by any professional. It doesn't, mostly people used to think it's leaning towards the surveyors or the cartographers, but no, it is actually for all the professionals. So then I'm just giving us some background on what is physical planning, what is participatory planning, and what is participatory GIS. Maybe some of us do not know that there's also something called participatory GIS. And in physical planning, we're saying that it's just about organizing the physical infrastructure and its functions to ensure orderly and effective siting of land uses. And when I talk of land uses, I mean all the planning land uses, but just a few are mentioned there: the residential, commercial, industrial, public purpose, transportation, public utilities, recreational activities. All of them have to be cited accordingly. And therefore it aims at achieving optimum level of land utilization in a sustainable manner. That is according to our to PLUPA. Then participatory planning, according to Rottenbacher 2007, it says that planners have the task. So the take home is of organizing the process of negotiation in a field of different interests and developing a common space for acting. So you have to make sure that all interests are actually taken care of, and there's a common understanding. So this space here, everybody has a common understanding of what should be happening. And therefore, in the same spirit, planners have to care for an understanding of all several steps of informing and decision making. And when we come to participatory GIS, we can also call it soft GIS or resident generated GIS. Why do we say that? Because all the decisions are made with the support from the participants or from all people who are concerned or all stakeholders, because you have to use their local knowledge. So you're planning for a place like Narumoru, for example, then you have to get the local knowledge of these people and get what has been happening there. You have to do what we call communicative planning practices and long span development processes, because everybody has to be included. And as you communicate with them, you have to make sure that whatever you're planning for is actually well communicated and they have understood. So in participatory GIS, we say we have two driving forces. So you are trying to empower the community, but in the same way, in data collection, you're becoming as innovative as possible. And therefore, you're using the various tools for GIS to collect this data. And therefore, it combines both the resident perception and the spatial information for you to be able to make your decisions well, and you make sure that you're working, you're using the two side by side so that none of them is under used or overlooked. Then remember the traditional planning methods. I will not delve into them, but what I'm looking at here is that, yes, they have been there, but now we are having what we call the new planning paradigm. So we have got a paradigm shift. And in paradigm shift, I will just speak to the two that actually concern matters participation, and I'm bringing in what we call community participation. So urban planning should provide for extensive consultation at all stages. As I have mentioned earlier, we have got what we call, so you have seen even in participatory GIS, we've got matters empowerment. And here also in community participation, we have what we call enabling and empowerment. So how do you do the same at every stage? At the inception of the planning process, you have to involve your stakeholders and inform them what you intend to do in their area. And then they have to buy in so that they embrace this plan to the end. Then the likely benefits would be clear objectives for planning interventions. So from the beginning, all the stakeholders have a clear view of what the interventions or what the planning interventions will be towards this area. And then we've got ownership of the program. So all the programs that you'll have proposed to the end, then again will have to be owned by the residents. Then of course, the public is now aware of what is happening. You're also strengthening the urban management instruments. You're also encouraging community involvement. So when we talk of the environmental protection, we're looking at the riparian reserves, the forest in the country and all the other water towers, then you are sure that they will be protected by this same community if you have involved them. Then also there's improvement services and there's transparency in the planning process. Then also just to still expound on the same, what we call in the new paradigm, we have what we call the involvement of all stakeholders. So it's still just speaking to the same, but most importantly here is that those stakeholders who are included should be those whose interests are affected by the planning process. And then also those who control implementation interests. So remember, we have been making plans, but are they implemented? So for them to be implemented, then you have to involve the implementers. Then you also have to the stakeholders who can contribute relevant information and expertise at the same time. So it explores the complex interactions between planning and information communication technology, ICT, where GIS again falls as a tool. So then I'll just give us a few examples of some of the works done using matters participatory planning. And there's a time we were doing GIS mapping of installed projects in the Nairobi County under an NGO called Haki Jamii. And in this, what we actually based on is that we looked at the Nairobi Integrated Development Plan. So when we looked at it, you check what are these community activities or these projects that have stalled over time. So you look at the budget that was given in the CIDP, and when you look at that budget, you involve the community leaders. So there are technical groups in most of the informal settlements, and actually these were the projects were taken from the informal settlements, which are very much affected. So Madare, Kibera, there's in Starehe, we had the Kamkunji. Then we were also looking at, in Kayole, we were looking at, which is in Embakasi West, we were looking at Mama Lucy maternity wing, which had also stalled for over some time. So it was complete, but it wasn't operational yet. So you look at even the public toilets, like the one that was in just next to Kibera. So what we did was we involved the same community as we were picking the waypoints. These are the coordinates for the various stalled projects. So we were with the communities. They are the ones who identified them. So you involve them to go to the places as you map these waypoints or the very stalled projects, and then you convert them using GIS to shapefiles. And after that, you make a map like the one on the screen. And of course, the counties, the sub-counties that are highlighted in pink in that selected project sub-counties are the ones that were affected at that time. And after that, you do what we call, you create a web map, which is openable in Google Earth, and also you can publish it on the web. So that was the product for the same, and it was very involved. The community were involved in the same, and they were even shown how to open it on Google Earth in their own gadgets, that's the mobile phones. And you can see that just how you can view them in Google Earth. And at the end of the day, now when you publish it on the web, you are able to, somebody is able to come and click on the very project, wherever it is, and be able to see what is it. So the name of the project, if it has a population, what amount was budgeted for the same, and even how has it stalled. And you see with this, the county or even the NGO is able to check again with time in the next span of time, if at all the county has actually done something to this stalled project. So this was very good where GIS is concerned, using the handheld GPS, then we were able to get this information. Then again here, I'm just giving some photos of public or participation by using GIS where plan preparation is concerned. You can see we have to get the maps for the areas, and the consultant together with the client have to look at which are the areas which are concerned. Then you have also meetings with the client together with the consultant, just to make sure that you're actually on the same page and as you're starting to plan. So like that photo is one of the inception. Then we have got this the photo on the bottom right is actually research assistants in the field using the GPS on their the GPS and the Kobo Collect system on their phones or tablets to collect data from the field, and they involve the community. You can even see a young child there is interested in knowing what is happening. Then also just giving some, when we are doing the studios, that is the site planning, the urban studio, the rural studio, and the regional studio, we also do what we call facility mapping using the handheld GPS or the mobile apps like GPS Essentials, Map Info, and among others. We also prepare various maps, e.g. the locational context maps, population density map, just to mention but a few. And the students have to present in class so that the same is also they are given marks, of course, for the progression of their degree, but also they have now the know-how of what happens where planning is concerned. Still the same, just expounding on preparation of land use maps, and which can also now, they are presented in class by these students, but you get that they have been able to execute the same using GIS for them to do all the spatial layouts that are concerned in the same. And even modeling of the various development scenarios. So in planning, as we know, for those of us who know matters planning, you have to do development scenario, the proposed development models for the area that you're planning for. But these I'm giving at the student level, not at the consultancy level, what the students are able to execute using GIS, and they're able to come up with the various models and even action area plans for the areas that they are planning for. And therefore now I will just go into what is the role of GIS in matters participatory planning. And I'm saying that it contributes to land tenure related policies. So as we know, planning happens on land, and land tenure is a very important or a key area that has to be looked into in matters planning. Therefore, when we have a GIS or participatory GIS in the planning process, then you get that you'll be able to get accurate maps, which are needed for matters land tenure, because that is a very emotive issue. And also it increases land-related legal battles, as well as need to inform the policy makers in the future when you're done with the plan. So this is very important where matters land tenure are concerned. Then we have got what we call a positive addition to a planner's negotiation skills. So again, because you are planning for an area, you've been given this task, but you are able to tell the client that, yes, I am doing this, but GIS has to be used to do 1, 2, 3. And GIS, as usual, Dolele will always give us a different option on the same. But initially, when it was being launched, getting the licenses was a bit expensive. But even still, right now, it depends on what do you want to use the license for and how many people are using it. So if it's for an individual, maybe it becomes expensive. But if it's for an organization, then it is very affordable. So then planners care for an understanding of all steps of informing and decision-making, and therefore they are able to use the same, this GIS concept or inclusion of GIS to actually have a better negotiation skills. And it goes a long way in convincing different stakeholders about the viability of the various proposals that have been given. But most importantly is about visualization. And I think from a planning point of view, we realize that every other time when we are doing our presentations or to the stakeholders, it's important for them to visualize what you're talking about. So if it's a 3D model, if you can even do it an animation for the same, then it becomes more, they're able to understand more what you're talking to them about. So we have both qualitative and quantitative visual variables that can be used, ranging from the hue, the lightness, the strengthening, and what have you. And we also have what we call the 3D models, like the one on the bottom left, and also just the spatial layouts. Generally, this is just for one of the students' studio classes that I go to put it here just to see that those are the various visualizations that are important. So when you're presenting to your stakeholders, because the GIS is very key for you to be able to do this. Initially, we used to do it in Axin, in ArcMap, in GIS, but there are many other ways of doing the same visualization so that it improves understanding of issues by the communities and stakeholders since they're able to see it especially displayed. Then in representation, I'm just saying that social concerns should constitute an integral part of GIS, given the growth of the desire for more inclusive participatory GIS. So the integration of GIS and participatory methods is deemed useful for promoting inclusion of the local knowledge, needs, and social histories. So you're even looking at the culture of a people in the mapping approach undertaken by the government agencies. But again, the role of GIS is about good governance practices. So if we involve all the stakeholders and GIS is here, then we know that if the government can embrace the same in all the policies and what have you, then we are able to have good governance practices in future and things will flow accordingly. So a full engagement of the stakeholders in participatory planning using GIS often generates maximum support from the community, that's leading to the legitimization of the project. So implementation even becomes very easy. Then matters capacity building, even what we're doing right now, but also if you're working for a certain county or you're, for example, preparing a special plan for a given county, for example, Kitui, you'll want to involve them. And if they are not aware of matters GIS, then the capacity building bit of it comes in because you have to train them on how they'll be using this GPS, on how they can read that paper map, and how they can even produce their own maps. They are also the same ones who will go to you'll go with on the drawing board, sit down with them, and they give you their proposals of the action areas, their priority areas, and what have you. So it's very important for us. So I'm just saying that participatory GIS benefits have evolved from merely describing locations to analyzing socioeconomic and political underpinning of people's lives. So when GIS came to be, we just need maybe picking that data and then you update your data, the database that you already have. But right now, it actually affects people's lives and livelihoods. Then just giving a few of the challenges, and I'm just saying that since GIS has generally been an expert-driven technology, So it was only expert knowledge or data that are readily available in digital form at the beginning, but it was as opposed to the local knowledge. So you get that the local knowledge is very important, and it will only be incorporated through GIS. So that is one of the challenges, that had been left out. Then we've got what we call personal and community security. May be violated if special information supplied by local people is used by state authorities and without their knowledge, consent, or understanding. So you have to get their buy-in and make sure that they are involved and they know that, yes, after some time, this will be given to the public, so that then they think, oh, this is okay. So you have to communicate the same to them. And in most cases, planning decisions are made by experts and technocrats with access to GIS knowledge, but there was no reference to those directly affected, as long as they come up with beautiful plans and graphics, then you get that whatever you're preparing would be null and void. So therefore, one would question the need to have participatory planning in the first place. Then GIS is relatively high cost, and unless safeguards are built in to ensure effective use, the costs are likely to be matched by real social benefits. And last but not least, I'm just saying that we have got what we call weakening governing policies. So there's need for deploying GIS institutional and policy context in which there is real commitment to incorporating the needs and perspectives of the local people. So just giving an overview of actually what as the Honorary Secretary KIP and how we have embedded matters GIS in KIP. I'm just saying that we have an MOU between KIP and ESRI for capacity building of the KIP membership, and we hold CPDs time and again. It's already scheduled in the KIP calendar. So every year we have got what we call CPDs where GIS is concerned, and we have what we call people logging in or tagging along so that they can be abreast with matters GIS. Then we have also participation of ESRI in KIP regional conferences and annual conventions. And as they participate, they sponsor their own staff, for example, Lele, but also they participate and also give some sponsorship to other activities that are done in the conferences and the annual conventions. And that is all from me. Over to you, Lele. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mildred, for tackling that session very, very well. I think I'm also learning. I'm a student in class as well. And today, I think one of the things I have learned is participatory GIS is soft GIS. Thanks for bringing that out. Thank you very much. I think I also love the fact that you've really given a very good case for the Kenyan context, how in terms of the policy and the legal framework and where GIS exactly is anchored and how we can streamline GIS in achieving participatory planning. But I love the fact that you've also brought in your experience from academia, right? From showing us the works that your students are doing. And I must admit that that is really impressive. And part of what we really encourage as the CAP Young Planners Network is that, of course, when you are defining young planners, it starts from the students, right, in school and immediate graduates. And that's where we start the molding. And it's really good to see that right from the academia, there's so much that is happening in terms of just ensuring that we're using GIS for participatory planning. And thanks for also pointing out that, of course, participation just enables buy-in for the plans that we are doing, and also highlighting some of the challenges that we have in terms of incorporating GIS into participatory planning. I think that was really, really awesome. I wish we could all just unmute and clap for you, but due to the nature of the meeting we are in, on behalf of the attendees, we want to ask questions. We have a number of us joining us from different countries, and I think I just want to mention, I can see we have representatives from Nigeria, Eswatini, the UK, Colombia, Kenya, Uganda, and many more. Thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to drop your questions on the chat for our powerful speaker. We'll have questions at the very end. So I think we're now going to move to the next speaker. So I said when doing the introductions, I said that we have a powerful team of speakers today. So we've gotten a very good context of the Kenyan context, and we just want to switch gears and see what's happening in Pakistan. And we have able speakers joining us from Pakistan. That's Adil, as well as Mohammed joining us from Pakistan. So I'm just gonna give them this opportunity to take us through their presentation. Then we'll have a question and answer session at the end. Please stay tuned. Continue posting your comments and your questions on the chat. Over to you, Adil.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the invite. It's really pleasure to be able to share and learn more about the participatory GIS. And I'm Mohammed Adil. I'm basically an urban planner and a researcher as well. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. So yeah, so I'm a researcher in urban planning, and I was working in the UK as a research fellow after my PhD for 5 years, where I learned a lot about like GIS and data analysis and stuff. And in Pakistan for past 1 year, I'm serving as an urban planner for different master planning projects. And here, GIS is a very basic role in spatial planning. I will just go through it. I'm just wondering about the presentation. Would you share your screen, or it's me who is supposed to share? Okay, good. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay. So I think I will keep going. Yeah. So my co-speaker, Mr. Khurram Fareed, who is also a vice chairman of Pakistan's Council of Architects and Town Planning, he represents town planner at the highest level of the council. And okay, and he's driving. He'll join us probably because he's on the motorway. And I said to him that it's much safer to keep focus on driving rather than on the presentation. So apologies for that. Yeah, let's move forward, please, with the contents. Okay, yeah, so I will talk about basically what planning and participatory planning is, and then I will straight go towards how GIS technology is currently being used. I will give some examples, and then I will explore current status of GIS in participatory planning, and then I will conclude with the constraints and future prospects for it. Next, please. Okay, next. Yeah, so we were well aware of it, that is a field of practice which basically shapes the cities, as the UN Habitats and the Royal Town Planning Institutes of the UK say, that is about balancing the social, economic, and environmental goals of the cities for a sustainable development. And because it's like cities for everyone, so the planning needs to take care of their opinions, everybody, so that everybody is happy in owning the plan as well. And that's my point here, that these goals are like public oriented as well. So public participation is very essential. I will not go into much detail into this definition, but I just wanted to highlight that planning is basically working towards the goals, and goals are always shared. Next, please. Yeah, so here it comes. The planning, participatory planning, is planning with the participation from the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? They're the citizens. These are all the businesses, all the people and neighbors who are affected by the city growth and everything happening in the cities, the communities, the decision makers, business, everyone. These are the stakeholders, and taking their input is what participatory planning is all about. This is what we understand and we are practicing in Pakistan as well. Next, please. Yep, next one, please. Okay, so what I wanted to show is that GIS probably started in Pakistan around 20 years ago, when Pakistan's Space and Upper Atmospheric Research Corporate Committee is one of the very famous and first companies which used GIS in Pakistan. They used spot satellite images, and then you introduced the GIS in Pakistan spatial development, and then it moved further. And now in the organization I'm working in Lahore, they are extensively using a range of data set beyond the satellite images towards more spatial data. We can see here, for example, the population density graphs on the very right side, and then some spatial analysis of population concentrations. So this is where what Pakistan is taking out from the GIS skills and expertise. Next, please. Yeah, so here we can see the in-depth on the left side. It shows the points are the number of cities which have some kind of plans built, and on the right side is the two examples where GIS is being currently used. We can see that this is much detailed kind of land use map, and also the peri-urban structure plan. So it's like a spatial planning. And I remember that last year when I was working in Karachi, city of Karachi is like the largest city in Pakistan. The private company's boss, he's a civil engineer, and he was saying me that if you can't use the GIS, you are probably not a planner. So it's like becoming a part of the planning community, or the skills and tool set we have. And as I explained earlier, the the planning is about participation and taking the views and shared goals and objectives of the stakeholders. So it's like GIS and participatory planning will go side by side in future. Uh, GIS is currently being used in spatial analysis, but it has a lot of potential for being used in participatory planning, which I'll talk more in the next slides. Next, please. Yeah, so here are some analysis. I call it more like spatial technical analysis, which may include some high level information technology or decision support system based analysis, which are currently being used in Pakistan, various uses, and they are very helpful in understanding the situations for the policymakers, but general public generally don't understand it. Next, please. Oh, yes. So here we have some more connectivity planning and then corridor analysis, tourism zone analysis being carried out with the GIS. So it's what I would call as a hard form of like GIS and planning as compared to what the soft, as our previous speaker also said, this is soft kind of GIS, a soft planning. So this is what we are much more ahead in hard kind of planning and hard GIS for the planning use. Next, please. Yep. So how we are going to using it for participatory planning. So here is the range of potential topics or ideas where this can be used, and it is being used somehow. So identifying and prioritizing certain areas. So for location identification, weighting criteria, some kind of locational analysis is in the participatory planning. We are using GIS, and then ranking and problem strategies and their solutions, and displaying it on the map. This is for the participatory planning, it is being currently used. And then some like online kind of activities and interactive mapping and taking the information out of it. For example, last year we had a program of dengue outbreak surveillance. So here it's like the people geotag the location where they found the patients and the outbreak. So this kind of participatory planning tools are using GIS in Pakistan, but at a smaller scale than the hard form of the GIS. Next, please. So yeah, so this is how it born. These two people are probably the pioneers in participatory planning and using advanced technologies like GIS in the participatory planning as well. And then we have I have a news clipping from recent where Balochistan's province, which is a relatively less developed area, they are also moving towards community-based participatory planning, and they are also using a bit of GIS in it. So the GIS use started quite a while ago, probably 15 years ago, when people took the data from the participants through maps. So this is how the GIS-based participatory planning started in Pakistan. Next, please. Yep. So these maps were used to get the data from the locals and then update these maps, and then the outputs basically improved the planning outcome as well through participator, because as the previous speaker also said, this it's like the public knowledge, which is the participatory GIS makes them makes it useful to get and map the public knowledge in the GIS. So public participation gives new information and it validates the plan And it even improves the plan. For example, in one case, like the costs were like halved or even much more. It like saved like almost 2/3 of the cost of projects were saved in Karachi by using the participatory techniques and using the GIS for improving the plan. So these are the products from those projects. Next, please. So yeah, so this is another case study where we are using the participatory planning. This is part of my co-speaker because he's driving, so I will just run through it. So we are using GIS for participatory planning, and people are like identifying their areas, priority areas through apps, and then discussing these issues in the forums of vision development and planning goal formulation stages as well. Next, please. Yep. So this is the data is being entered into handheld software devices through mobile phones and other operating systems. So people give the information, spatial information, and then this is being used in GIS analysis. Next, please. Yep. So site planning, topographic surveys, and focus group discussions, field surveys, and then these all go into making the formulation of final plans. So the participatory planning and participatory GIS is becoming an integral part of general master planning exercise in Pakistan as well. Next, please. Yeah, so this is another example of hard GIS based planning, which basically is a technical oriented rather than the participatory. Next, please. Yeah, so here, for example, scenario analysis and people's priorities and preferred locations are mapped, and people's input are being taken through and mapped with the help of GIS. For example, where they want something, where they want the school, especially in the hilly terrains and in difficulty accessible remote areas. So here GIS based participatory planning gives a better overview than the non-participatory planning. Next, please. Yep, another plan for the same. Next, please. Yep, so I would say that currently GIS use in participatory planning is at its infancy stage as compared to the hardcore technical GIS based analysis. And then GIS is used in participatory planning in order to show the location of interest, where the prioritize those locations, and then improving the maps. So participatory planning is contributing to the knowledge and improving and verifying the GIS in Pakistan as well, GIS based products, because the technical people, they don't know the local situation. So here is where participatory GIS comes into force and gives multiple added advantages. And then there are certain issues, as the previous speaker also taught, that generally public and government is not realizing its full potential, and it's a capital intensive, tech heavy, expert oriented techniques and technology, and the people need to be supervised for accurate and more reliable and useful results in GIS based participatory planning. Next, please. Okay, so and then the issue of acceptability as well, like people say that, well, GIS, because we don't know, so we don't know what is going on in these maps because we can't read and write it. And then there is a complexity of the GIS structures and GIS softwares and platforms and use protocols that's kind of hindering the adaptability of GIS in participatory planning, because focus groups and the audio transcription and translations are much easier than the GIS analysis taken from the people, because of the issues of understanding and trust on the technology as well. And then there are prerequisites, for example, electricity, internet, and other infrastructure hardwares, which are a kind of hurdle to go through for GIS in participatory planning. And then the local involvement as well, because sometimes they don't need the technology, sometimes they don't use it as they should have, and then like general population sometimes don't trust it as well. So these are some of the issues of using GIS in participatory planning. Next, please. Okay, so my concluding remarks would be the sum up of it. And then that GIS use in general spatial planning is relatively well established. We have good human resource and technical expertise, but in participatory planning, it's not that much up to the mark. And there is a great potential in it. For example, improving and verifying the existing spatial data is one quality of participatory GIS. And then various local organizations are using GIS tech in their participatory planning in their own capacity. There are certain issues and risks involved in this wider adoption, and public trust and government support and financial investment hold the key for realizing the potential. For example, is a good, I like example from Kenya Institute of Planner, who have a MOU signed with the ESRI for letting the planners know how to go forward and use its potential to the full extent. So I think these are the takeaways from me, and I would now end my talk, and thank you for the invitation and opportunity.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Adil, for that well-covered presentation. And I really like the fact that you've taken us through participatory planning, what it really is, and you've taken us through step by step what you have been doing in Pakistan in preparing the different types of plans, and just trying to bring in the whole idea of GIS in participatory planning, right from the field surveys that we do, be they the focus group discussions and all, and also just highlighting some of the things that are hindering the use of GIS in participatory planning. And I think I just want to pick from where Adil just left. As I look at the chat, feel free to drop your questions, but even as you drop your questions. So I think it's very evident that in terms of using GIS for planning, we've actually used GIS in mainstream planning very, very well. But I think what is coming out from the presenters is that we have not really mainstreamed the use of GIS in participatory planning. And that's why we have such educative sessions to just tell ourselves, so how exactly can we better do this? So what do you think are some of the ways that young planners, because again, this session is not just focused for young planners, but also planners generally, what are some of the things that you think maybe right even from the academia? I know Mildred is from academia, Adil, you're also from academia. What are some of the methods or means in which you're incorporating to ensure that we're mainstreaming GIS within participatory planning? So we can have Adil go first, then have Mildred, and then as I pick questions from the chat. Adil, you want to go first? For the speakers, you can turn on your cameras. Am I audible? Can everyone hear me? I'm not sure if Adil can hear me.
Yes, you are audible.
Hi, I just had a break in the internet, but yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so maybe I may just want to quickly just repeat. I think it's evident that we've used GIS in mainstream planning for quite some time, and it's well established. But in participatory planning, I think we are still at the very formative stages of adopting these. So I'm just trying to get your opinions and ideas on how best we could incorporate these. What are some of the methods and tools that we could use, GIS methods and tools that we could use to incorporate these within participatory planning? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I was thinking on the same lines as well. So it's a two-way process. It's like a natural, evolution process of the society. Like they are well aware of the tools and technologies, because there are prerequisites, for example, internet and knowledge about the spatial information and everything. So that's one will be the natural process of knowledge making, which will help in shaping the GIS-based participatory planning. And the second one is like we need to give like more time to let the people know about it, and so that we can use its potential in future as well. So it's like probably giving sufficient time for the users and the stakeholders to understand it and then use it, and then it will definitely give multiple benefits as well.
All right, thank you, Adil. Mildred, you want to give a shot at it before I see we have a number of questions before we go to the other questions on the chat?
Yeah, thank you, Lele. I think on matters in cooperation or what methods are being used, of course, like in, I think sometimes back, that's how GIS as a unit was introduced in all the planning schools, so that it is first and foremost, the students get to know are well acquainted with matters of GIS even before they go into the preparation of the site plans, the rural plans, and the other plans that they prepare as they progress in their education or in their learning at the university. However, I think that there are more newer apps coming up as we go on matters GIS. You know, the handheld GPS, for example, it was like the first key data collection tool that we had in the beginning, but it's a bit rigid because some of them don't have cables, and therefore you had to go and as you're picking the data, you are recording it, then you go back to class and now type it in Excel before you can now upload it onto the GIS or ArcMap interface or whichever interface you're using for you now to be able to make sense out of it or to make some decisions. But right now, there are many apps that are coming up on the mobile apps. And I think those are the ones that we are encouraging more and more for the students to use, and even the other people when they are doing the field data collection. There's the Kobo Collect, which again is embedded into GIS in one or another because it interacts with the spatial layout and they're able to bring out very good product. So we are trying as much as possible to make sure that all these newer apps are actually at the disposal of the students and any other person who would like to use them. And therefore, capacity building, I think, is the key. However, there's this bit of it that students have different priorities. Maybe during your time it was different, but as we are going on, by the time they realize that this tool is very important, and I think even as a person you realize that, is the when they have stepped out of college and they have gone to the real time or to the offices, and now they're working in a planning office or whichever other office they're working in, and it now requires them to have this tool, but they have no idea what it's all about. Why? Because when they were in class, their priorities were different. So it's just encouraging them every other time that they have to be keen on these tools because they are very important. Let me not expound more on the same. Merci.
Thank you very much, Mildred. Thank you for that response. And I think I like what Adil has also just added on the chat. I think in terms of, he's also mentioned that in Pakistan, they're doing exactly that, having GIS in their curriculum, which is a good thing, which brings me to the next question. So before we go to the next question, I think I saw Alex. Alex, your hand was up. Do you want to ask your question? Alex? Kindly just unmute and ask your question. I'm not sure if Alex can hear me. Well, but Alex has sent a question. He's asking, how do you sensitize the decision makers on the need to invest in GIS infrastructure? How do you sensitize the decision makers on the need to invest in GIS infrastructure? So Adil and Mildred, you can take note of that. And then I'm seeing another question here before I give an opportunity for Sophie. Thank you, Mildred and Adele, for the enlightening presentation. There's need for planning schools to incorporate GIS training in their curriculum or training manuals. How can we achieve this? I think Mildred had touched on that, but you can still expound. Then I'm seeing Sophie's hand is up. Sophie, you can ask your question.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Sophie.
My name is thank you very much for organizing this meeting today. It has been insightful. I'd like to ask, I am a student at the University of Nairobi, awaiting graduation in September, God willing. And my main concern or other question would be, how best can we who who are transitioning from school position ourselves to be able to learn, for example, Planner Mildred, how best can we position consultancies and to improve our skills from the school level and transition into what our mentors already know.
All right, thank you so much, Sophie. So I think Mildred and Adil, you want to take that. So Mildred, I think you can take Sophie's question, and then there were other questions on how to sensitize decision makers and the need to invest on GIS. So I think you can take those.
Let Adil go first.
All right,
Okay,
Adil.
thank you, Mildred. Okay, thank you, Mildred. Okay, so even this question, like how do we sensitize the decision makers, is probably one of the toughest questions for this talk for me as well. So it's like, for example, this one small activity by CAP. So, and outreach in the social media, and probably if being the planners or the advocates for use of GIS and participatory planning, if we could produce the material which shows and convinces them through commentaries, through expert knowledge sharing, through hosting these seminars, that's one thing to do that. And probably the second thing is to, for example, these decision makers also have their courses as well. So if we could improve their knowledge somehow as well, for example, advocating for like improvement in their knowledge curricula as well. So that will be very helpful to make them convince, and then sharing the successful case studies. So it's like dissemination and reaching out are probably the best tools here.
Right, thanks, Adil. Mildred?
I think Adil is still speaking, but it's only that his network.
No, that's fine. I finished.
Okay, thank you, Adil.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and thank you, Evelyn. And I think, Adil has put it so well on matter sensitization or sensitizing the decision makers on the need to invest. Actually, it's more on matters capacity building, but from the Kenyan point of view or from the Kenyan context, I would say that, yeah, we need, like, through the Council of Governors, then we can reach out to the counties, because these are the personnel in the counties are actually the most important, the decision makers in the counties, due to our devolved government, are the most important people to be aware of matters GIS. And even as we can see, some of the counties already have what we call GIS labs, or already everything is installed, but it's not in use. Why? Because of capacity building. So that can only be followed from the county, from the Council of Governors point of view, and also maybe from the KIP point of view, just matter sensitization with even what we are doing on the CPDs with S3. I think that's the best way to sensitize the key decision makers. But of course, again, it's just a matter of it's a back and forth, or it's a win-win situation whereby, yes, we are talking to them, but are they also ready to embrace the same? So it's a gospel that has to be done time and again, just for these people to realize that this is very important. And as it's put in Plupa, for example, from the fact that you cannot do any plan without giving that GIS database or that GIS deliverable, then to me, I would think it's very important. It's one way of even the guys at the county to know that this is very important. Then I think there's somebody who has asked on matters training manuals, and I think training manuals with regards to academia, or when we are teaching these students, because most of the time I think what we do is just to give the tools and train them critically, make sure that they are very conversant with or well interactive with the tool, but we do not submit to them the training manuals per se. But when you go to a place like Regional Center for for mapping. When you go to a place like, what we call it, to Esri itself, to Oka, I think they have several training manuals with regards to what level. So at the university level or at the undergraduate level, for example, we're just giving a unit called Introduction to GIS. We have not given them, you cannot exhaust, because GIS on its own is a course that can be done undergraduate, and again can be done up to the master's level as a single course. And it is so wide, and when you can come to the master's level, you get that there are very many different other aspects that you can look at it. So the remote sensing bit of it is a whole wealth of information on matters GIS. So it depends on what you really want, but the training manuals are actually also prepared or provided with regards to what section 1 is dealing with. And maybe to delve into Sophie's question on how the young planners can position themselves to improve their skills. First, again, it's just going back to the same, that yes, the introduction to GIS that they are taught at undergraduate level is just for them, it's like a kickstart bit of it, but it's up to the student themselves to either now do a master's in GIS from any other institution, the same institution they are in, or any other that is relevant, or go even do a diploma in GIS. I think there are still other institutions which are giving the same, and there are many other organizations which are giving, so like the regional center. So you get that now you're getting the more, you're becoming wider in the matters GIS than just keeping to what you are taught in class. So it's about the innovativeness of the student or of the young graduates for them to go a notch higher. But of course, even as KIP, what we are doing with the CPDs, we are actually also just capacity building on the same. The question I've left out.
I think you have that well covered. So I think in the interest of time, I just want I want to give each of you, to give their parting shot, but Adil, I'd also want you to tell us if there are any initiatives you're doing, or if there are any initiatives that the Town Planning Institute of Pakistan are doing in terms of capacity building. Matters GIS, you can highlight that, then give your parting shot in another minute, then we hand it over to Mildred, then we call it a day. Adil?
Okay, so actually, I'm sorry, I don't have enough knowledge about that, and it's more like the members of the Pakistan Council of Architects and Town Planning. They are free to choose on their own free will, but it's like not really a good example of this kind of like leading the way towards more geographic GIS based education or CPD. So I can't find anything like that. I may be wrong, but I think this is what is lacking in the current institute or current council of planners in Pakistan here. Yeah, that's it for me.
All right, thanks Adil. I think our speakers have really done justice to the session today, and I just want to give them a minute just to give a parting shot, your parting shot, and then we can call it a day.
Okay, Millard, would you want to contribute here?
Yeah, Lily. Sorry, thank you. I know ladies first, but Lily, there's Dr. Aisha Bello Hassan from Nigeria, and she's also in remote sensing. I would really like her, just give her a minute to just give her comment on the experience on matters participatory GIS in Nigeria. I think it would be very informative for us. And then Adil and I can give our closing remarks. Merci.
Sure. Dr. please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Bello. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, the issue of participatory GIS is actually in trying to do an inclusive planning. People assume that just people from academia, technocrat from the office are planning something without citizen participation. So now comes participatory GIS. You know, GIS it is said that a picture is worth 1,000 this thing. So can you hear me?
Yes, Bella, we
Yes,
can hear you.
can hear you.
Okay, so when we started participatory GIS, it is that there is a plan. In one way or the other, it is distorted. For instance, so you now go with it to the grassroots, to the stakeholders, communities. Okay, this is the initial plan, but it is distorted. And this is the consequences. It will affect this and that. It will affect this route. It will affect this building and so on. So we now include the people in the decision making. They are also decision makers. So we invite them. What do you think will happen? Even if we are not going to use it, we will get something. We are learning from them. They have the local knowledge of the place and a knowledge not well documented. They will now include it. We take note and include it in the planning. At the end of the day, you will now give them this map to keep. If there is any distortion, you don't have anything to do. They will talk to the person that is trying to distort this plan because you include these people in the planning. Hello?
Yep.
Hello?
Yes, Bella, we can hear you.
Okay. For instance, in the issue of flooding, in Nigeria, there is flood that every year is being flooded, and the people doesn't want to move from that place. So we went there for participatory planning. We showed them the map of that place before the flood event and what is happening now. So they show it, this is what is happening. So we now tell them this is because of this. You are now building anywhere, you are not following the plan. We work with them, we were able to bring out something, and the head of the village, we keep a copy of the map with them so that at least they will know that they are also stakeholders. And it worked for us. At least some people that are blocking the water route were able to move to a better place and so on. So participatory GIS is a welcome development. And my dear student that is asking, please, any software, you learn it with your hard work. A teacher will only come and give you some ingredients. You will learn it with your hard work. So Google, get the steps and go to YouTube. Make sure you have your GIS software installed on your laptop. Then you sit down one by one, following the steps. In case of anything, you can ask a teacher. Nobody can teach you. You teach, you will learn yourself. They will just give you an ingredient, but nobody will sit down with you and say, this is what it will take time. But by doing yourself, you will learn a lot. Within a month, you are an expert in GIS. Thank you very much, Mildred.
All right. Thank you, Bello. Thanks for pointing out those application of participatory GIS in Nigeria. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was important. And thanks, Mildred, for pointing it out. Thank you very much, Bello.
Thank you.
All right. Mildred.
Lele, I think I will, Bello, kindly mute Aisha. Now I'll give my, I will give my closing remarks, but most importantly is that as Dr. Hassan has said, actually you are given the ingredients, but it's up to you now to know how to just use these ingredients to make sense out of it. And as I've said at my closing remarks, young planners need to be more innovative. I know it's expensive, like if I was to tell them to go to regional center, to go to S3, they have their packages and they have their prices for the same. Maybe Lele will mention the same, or to Oka services or whatever it is. However, it's about sacrifices in life, because for the GIS tool, without practice, you cannot be proficient in it. So the practice is you getting the knowledge, however you can get it so that you become proficient in the same. And it's about one step after another, and with time, before you know, you get that you are proficient. I have students who are doing better than what I do in GIS, Lele being one of them. I have Daniel Kabiru, I have Decent Ingati, I have another one called Sami Muinde, and they're doing very well in GIS, but because they just got the basics, but they ran with it. So it's about getting the basics, but then what do you do with them? And you don't just sit there. Instead of just sitting there, as Aisha has said, use your free time to even use Google, so that instead of watching something on Facebook or on WhatsApp, then kindly use that time to up your skills in matters GIS and remote sensing. I think that's all from me, Lele. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mildred. Adil, your parting shot as we come to a close.
Okay.
Excuse
So,
me, can I add something?
Sure, Bello, you can.
Hello?
In another
Okay, in
minute.
each software, this is to my dear students, in each software, there is what is called help. Under help, there is tutorial. Follow that tutorial and learn it. By next week, I think you will come back with a different story. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Adil. Sorry, we cut you short.
No, that's fine. Thank you. And yeah, so my parting shot will be like, this is a good question. Like, how can we improve this GIS-based participatory planning in our spatial planning practices, especially in the government sector? So there are a few thoughts here. First thing is, we should ensure at least some basic level of public participation, because I have seen plans being made without consulting the public. So first thing is, if we have participation, then we can move towards GIS-based participatory planning. So first prerequisites, involve the people, talk to them, and then probably we'll have to also act as a teachers for the general public if they don't know. But ultimately, it may help them as well, and it will help us as well, because the outcome will be much able to give more useful plans and suggestions if we take their input accurately. So it's like the second thing. First is ensure participation. Second is like to teach them how to do that. And thirdly is disseminate our findings to as much as we can and involve the decision maker on this project. I think these are the three things what we can do to increase the GIS-based participation in our spatial planning practices. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Adil. I think we've come to the end. I wish to thank everyone who's joined us today for this webinar on achieving participatory planning with GIS, and more a special appreciation to our speakers and all of us. Thank you so much, Bello, for your comments, and everyone who's asked questions, and for joining us from the different parts of the Commonwealth. Apologies on behalf of our chair. As I mentioned, she was to join us, but she's currently in Rwanda for preparations for the CHOGM, that's the Commonwealth Heads of State meeting that is happening beginning on Sunday. That's why she was not able to join us, but she sends her regard. And I think I just want to remind us that in case you missed the entire recording of the session has been recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. The link has been shared on the chat. So feel free to follow us on our social media platform. That's CAP Young Planners Network on LinkedIn, CAP Young Planners Network on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We shall be sharing the proceedings of this webinar today. And feel free to also just follow us for more capacity building sessions and webinars. Otherwise, thank you so much for finding time to join us today. Have yourselves a good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be part of this. And thank you.